What's going on, all? It is Friday, the 27th. Another month will be done here real soon. I made it out of Florida. It was an interesting situation. I was speaking at this event, actually, yeah, day before yesterday. So the day I was supposed to speak, because I've been at this event before, and it was 2 years ago when that hurricane hit Tampa, actually Cape Coral and all that area really heavily. I was at the same event. I was set to speak that same day, and the hotel shut down. Says everybody out because they had to shut it all down for the hurricane, and we had to just make our way out. And I made my way to Miami and flew out of Miami yesterday, actually day before yesterday, they shut down the hotel after I spoke. So I at least got to speak. I got to speak on economics, got to speak on inflation to a large group of some seriously influential people in that room. I mean, you can look up Dolph DeRoos, you can look up, John Maxwell, Robert Allen, Sharon Lecter, the likes of those people were in this room, and I got to speak to them. And actually, was following some of them and sandwiched between some of them in my speeches. So it's a really cool group of people to be with, and make those kind of relationships. And I'm, establishing those relationships with those folks. Kim Kiyosaki, those folks. That's who was there. It was a pretty freaking cool event. And then they shut down the hotel, and we had to get out that afternoon. So my flights were canceled, so I made my way to Ocala, stayed there, Ocala over to Orlando the very next day, flew out of Orlando at the last flights coming out yesterday, made home. So here I am, standard background. So we're still getting a lot of people say, hey, the Fed lowered the rate. Why is your rates not any better? Okay, I've got more data to give you to try and help you out with this because I want you guys to understand it. So the federal fund rate is what the Fed adjusted. If you look this up, it's the interest rate that banks charge each other when lending money overnight. So essentially, it's acting as a benchmark for short-term borrowing between financial institutions. That's what it is, between banks, not between individuals. It's not what they're giving you. So it's set by the Federal Open Market Committee. That's all the different presidents of the different Federal Reserve banks across the country. And they use that kind of help push economic activity. It's essentially the rate banks use to lend reserve balances to each other. So what they mean by a reserve balance is when you're borrowing from them, they have to have a certain amount of money on reserve available to them to deal with any sort of problems as a bank. And so the Federal Reserve is lending them that money overnight, sometimes if they need it, and that's where the rate comes from. Now, what's also interesting, let me share this with you. You guys will find this one interesting, I believe. Do a quick little share screen. Oh, geez, it's wanting me to move my share screening option. Very interesting. Okay, so we're going to do this one. So the Fed right here, this is CNBC. The Fed slashed interest rates last week, but Treasury yields are still rising. What's going on? They want to know. Treasury yields. Okay, that's another bond. People love to look at U.S. Treasuries, typically the 10-year, to see what's happening with interest rates because money flowing into big pools of money, right? The long-term bonds influences what's going to happen with rates themselves. And so you want to look this up. It goes through the whole thing that these things are, it's driven by the market. It's not driven by the Fed. So as you can see with the Treasury yield, when this goes down, rates go up. I'm going to go ahead and share another screen with you guys. The same as our mortgage-backed security. When it goes down, rates go up because money's leaving those pools. So as money leaves, the cost of that money goes up. So for us as real estate investors, we want to be aware of that. Just because of what the Fed does, it doesn't affect interest rates. So if you're saying Aaron Chapman's team doesn't know what to talk about, I'm going to call around and talk to the lenders. There may be some other lenders do a little cut somewhere here and there just to try and say, see, we're right, the interest rates go down, but that's not what end up happening. As far as the information this week with respect to the economy itself, what happened out there, it was an interesting week. FHFA housing price index actually went up a little bit. So the price of housing went up just a tad, 1% basically. Case-Shiller said it jumped up to 5.9%. It was forecast to be 5.7. It's 5.9. So prices are still going up, but it's down from what it was before, prior to 6.5. Consumer confidence, that went down. It was forecast to be 103. The prior reading was, let me see here, 105.6. It's now 98.7. People are not feeling as confident because what's happening with the job situation, right? New home sales, they went up. People are buying houses, 716,000 from 710,000. Let me see here. Initial claims, interesting. Those went down. People filing for their first unemployment filing, but continuing claims went up quite a bit. So that had a jump in itself. And then we had personal income went down a bit, but personal spending stayed flat. People are still spending money. PCE, the personal consumption expenditures index, that stayed flat, not just a regular index, but the core index went down. So that's what the Fed uses to measure inflation. So that's going to determine what they do with the next rate cut. They may not do one because look, I mean, it's just kind of holding flat. So we'll see what ends up doing. But if they cut too much, that's going to be inflationary. That could push a little, then things up on the inflation side, impact bonds, have a negative approach, interest rates go up. So we'll see how it all plays out. But right now, guys, it's just floating in that channel that I showed you. It's going sideways. Yeah, it's down a little bit, but it may have a rate that pre-Fed rate cut. If you had got locked a rate that day, it'll cost you maybe 1/8%, possibly a quarter higher today. So it's not like the rate moved, the cost just moved a little bit. So if you need better detail, get a hold of me. We'll talk it through. Thank you.